At some point, everybody dreams of escaping the grind and unplugging off-grid. Some people even go out and buy entire abandoned towns like this guy here that's completely off the grid. Buy some cheap land, live simply away from the noise, and maybe even turn it into a profitable rental. Is the dream that a lot of people have. But is it really the smarter move, or is it just a pipe dream that most folks haven't figured out yet? Let's start with why this common dream is so attractive to most people. To put bluntly, people love the idea of freedom, simplicity, and getting away from the day-to-day grind of work and just everyday chaos. And on top of that, land can be cheap, like really cheap. You can find few acres for like $20,000 cheap. And with social media full of glamorous off-grid builds and influencers touting their perfect off-grid lifestyle, it feels doable and actually, oddly enough, and even better than living in your apartment or your home in the suburbs. Some people even imagine renting out a little off-grid cabin to make some extra passive income. It's actually a pretty seductive dream. But here's the first problem. Cheap doesn't always mean affordable or comfortable. So what does an off-grid build really take? As someone who's been building and investing for 2 decades, I'll share the hidden costs, the risks, and the few times I'd actually consider going off-grid, like with this property. Here's where things can get a little bit messy. Most of us know that a cheap $20,000 piece of land usually doesn't come with any utilities. And bringing in utilities will usually be several tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on how remote you are and the type of land that you purchased. Now, in some cases, it's not even possible to bring in utilities due to where the land is located, or if you even have access to water tables or even water rights. And that's typically where most people start thinking about going off-grid, which totally makes sense. But here's the reality. If you want to live off-grid and still have many of the modern comforts that we're all used to, you really need 3 things: water, energy, and waste management. Without these, that dream lifestyle gets pretty rough very fast. So first up is water, which is essentially a non-negotiable. And if you're lucky, maybe there's a natural spring or stream on your land. But for most people, this means that they're gonna be drilling a well, and that can cost anywhere from a few thousands, $10,000 to $100,000 plus, depending on how deep you have to drill and the terrain that you're on.
So building off-grid has always been a really hot topic, not just for a short-term rental crowd, but really for anybody that's dreaming of escaping the day-to-day grind of just city life. Now, if you've been thinking about investing in property, land, or a unique off-grid home, and you want to learn how to use it not only as an income stream, but also to cancel out a big chunk of your taxes every year, you've got to come to my free workshop on the 26th of this month. I'll be hosting it live with my good buddy Rob Abasolo, and we're packing it full of actionable steps that you can take right now. Plus, we're gonna be giving some freebies too, just for showing up. Hit the registration link down below. We've got only 500 seats this time, so grab your spot before they're gone.
Now, if your property does not have access to a water table, or you can't even have a well in your property, then you are restricted to hauling in water. And what that means is either installing a cistern, which looks something like this, that costs between $3,000 to $7,000 for a decent sized one, or literally filling up tanks in town and then trucking them in. You can do this yourself, or you can hire somebody. Now, this isn't too bad if it's just you for like a hunting or a small getaway cabin. But imagine cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, and showers for a whole family, or even guests if you're renting it out. Hauling 50 gallons at a time adds a lot of work and effort for a getaway cabin. And then to hire a truck to bring water to you and fill up your cistern will cost anywhere between $250 to $600 per truckload, depending on where you're located. Next is energy. Now, everyone loves the idea of being solar powered. I'm no different. But here's the truth. A small solar setup might cost between $10,000 to $15,000, and that only covers the basics. Now, the US government does have incentives for solar panels, but if you really want to run modern appliances, air conditioning, or tools, you'll need a much bigger system, and that could hit as high as $40,000 to $50,000 plus. And then off the thing that a lot of people miss about solar panels is there's quite a bit of upkeep and maintenance of the panels whenever there's snow, wind, or even pollen season. Now, there are some cheaper options out there. We got propane tanks, which are a few $1,000s to install plus regular refills. Wood stoves, which cost about $3,000 for a safe modern setup, but you also have to be chopping a lot of wood. And of course, you got gas generators, which can cost between $1,000 and $5,000 up front, but are super noisy and expensive for long-term fuel use. So most of us want to go the solar route, like I did when I wanted to go off-grid with my property here. But what I didn't realize is that it's practically the same price, if not more, than to wire and hook up a house close to the grid. And then third, we've got waste. Now this one gets messy and a little bit smelly. Now a traditional septic system can be as low as $8,000 to $10,000, but it can also get as high as $65,000 to $100,000 plus. It all depends on the terrain, the soil type, and the system that you need to put in. Now this one here cost me about $24,000 about 10 years ago. The same system today was quoted over $65,000 just earlier this year. Now that's usually fine for an on-grid house that you're having financed, but not always ideal for off-grid if you're doing it yourself or you're funding it with cash. So people try buckets. Yes, I've literally seen these on Airbnb where you have a Home Depot bucket and sawdust in a toilet seat. I've actually used this method for many months, maybe years, during my times of construction and off-grid years. But most others who don't have access to a septic system or traditional plumbing will use composting toilets. Now these can range from several hundreds to several thousands of dollars, especially on the newer fancy incinerator toilets that doesn't rely on bacteria, but instead it burns your waste. Now these can work for couples or solo living. But trust me when I say a family of 4 or rental guests will push the systems to their limits, and especially when they don't follow instructions. Like I said, messy and smelly. And then of course there's the absolute raw and wrong way of doing it, where you just go outside, dig a hole, or just do your business outside. Now that's fine for camping, I guess, but for daily living, it is a health and environmental hazard. And it's also worth noting that this is illegal in a lot of states and counties. A lot of areas take black water and human waste disposal very seriously because you can easily spread a lot of disease and germs when obviously your waste is not treated properly and it flows into the water supply. So if you want an off-grid life to feel like an actual home, you will need some serious plans around waste management. Now let's talk about the investment side. Banks don't love off-grid builds, especially DIY ones. Lenders tend to be very conservative and protective over their money. Who would have thought? And it's not just about your ability to pay them back, which a lot of people get confused by. They want the collateral on your asset. So your property needs to have marketable value now and in the future. But DIY off-grid applications don't usually meet this criteria, which means no financing, nor is there an easy buyer pool if you ever decide to sell. And when that time does come, your property might sit for years or maybe forever and just won't be able to sell at all. Now, when I coach my clients who want to go off-grid, we always talk about the most important thing first, an exit plan. How comfortable are they if they never get their money back from their project? And then finally, we've got safety and code. A lot of DIY builds would never pass inspections, even in areas that don't require inspections or permits. But there's a reason why there are national building codes and local ones. Electrical hazards, fire risks, septic contamination, structural support. A lot of these issues happen a lot more than people realize. If you've been watching the channel, you'll see me actually working on these types of properties. And if you're lucky enough to find a lender who can fund one of these projects, 100% they're gonna want you to build a code. Because if you don't, and when that's discovered, the value of your home or the cabin drops to zero really, really fast. So this space here was supposed to be an off-grid application. I had plans drawn up, everything was ready to go. I even had my vendors ready to start shipping me supplies and materials. But I couldn't get permits. And then when I spoke to my lender and they said they would never finance or refinance me out of the property, that's when I decided to switch to on-grid as an investment strategy. And honestly, it was one of the best 7-figure decisions I've ever made. Okay, let's talk about what this actually looks like as an investment. Now, I know the idea of a cabin, dome, or treehouse off-grid is super attractive to most of us. It follows and goes along with everything we always say, keep it Instagrammable, and make it feel unique. But there are 3 big things you've got to consider before you put serious money into any type of off-grid project, especially if you want to sell in the future or make money off of it. First, who are you really building this for? If it's for you, go to your heart's content if you don't care about getting money out of it. But most off-grid means no air conditioning, limited hot water, and a compost toilet or a bucket. That takes more than just one step to use. We have to ask ourselves how many paying customers, so future buyers and paying guests, are actually excited about doing just that. Now, there's a niche market in the Airbnb space that loves it, granted, but it's relatively small. And here's the truth. On Airbnb, off-grid properties almost always sit in the bottom quartile for performance. The nightly rates are lower, occupancy is really inconsistent because obviously it's gonna be reliant on the weather, and most guests who are paying premium pricing, they expect and want comfort. So if you're banking on this as a high income STR strategy, you're kind of already starting behind the 8 ball. Second is maintenance and upkeep. Now, off-grid builds are usually pretty far out there, like really rural. That's why they're off-grid and that's why they're allowed to be off-grid. But that means that when something breaks, you don't have a long list or Rolodex of handymen and laborers to come out and help you. And trust me when I say something will always break or go wrong. Solar systems, compost toilets, propane tanks, wood stoves, these are all things that need regular attention. And most cleaners and local handymen don't really want to deal with them. But if you do go this route, you need a checklist of weekly and monthly tasks and someone reliable to handle them. Otherwise, you'll be the one hauling in the water and fixing the solar panels at midnight. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that way too many times over the past couple decades. And then finally, what happens when things go wrong? With enough guests, something always goes wrong. A fridge dies, pipes burst, guests don't know how to get the propane going, or the classic toilet malfunction. Now, this is all normal for long-time hosts that are on grid, but off-grid, it takes it up a whole nother notch. A guest who leaves a propane tank on, that's a serious safety issue and an extremely expensive bill. I mean, some of these propane tanks are 500 to 1,000 gallons. And a lot of guests won't understand how to use the composting toilet or incinerator toilet. Now you've got a major mess that needs to be addressed immediately by you or your team. And unlike a normal Airbnb where you can monitor with smart devices or adjust settings remotely, most off-grid builds don't have strong Wi-Fi or smart systems. You essentially don't have eyes on your property, and that can be dangerous and expensive as a host and property owner. We have several stories of people squatting or trespassing on properties where they don't have that are off-grid, so it's something to consider. So when something doesn't go according to plan, you or someone that you're gonna be paying will have to drive all the way out to the property there to address it and fix it, and usually that's not very cheap with either money or time. Here's my take. Off-grid retreats are fantastic for personal use, hunting cabins, weekend escapes, maybe even a rustic family getaway. But for long-term living or short-term rentals, the numbers rarely add up. And that's because you're usually paying all cash because financing is almost impossible to find. And resale and refinancing are slim to none. And to be honest, when I get into real estate deals, I'm mostly focused on equity creation and tax savings. And unfortunately, neither of those are in play with off-grid applications. So yes, off-grid can look amazing, dreamy, and even romantic. But as an investment, in most cases, it's more hassle than it's really worth. Now, I don't want this to sound like off-grid is always bad. It does have some of its upsides. Some of the pros are lifestyle freedom, self-sufficiency, and if done right, a unique property that could really stand out as a rental. But also what I can't emphasize enough is you living your life on your own terms. And sometimes that's worth more than any type of return. But let's not forget the cons. We've got higher prep costs, hard financing, risky resale values, and then we got safety and code headaches. So yes, there are success stories out there, but those stories usually involve very careful planning and a lot more money than people expect. Here's the bottom line. Going off-grid isn't impossible, but it's also not cheap or easy dream most people imagine anyways. And it can be rewarding, but it can also be one of the fastest ways to drain your bank account if you don't know what you're doing and you don't have a plan for all the hidden costs. So if you're serious about buying land, run the numbers twice, and plan for triple the cost and quadruple the effort. That's usually my rule of thumb for newer folks. And before you make your move, check out this video here where I break down the biggest mistakes land buyers make and then how to avoid them. And if you'd like to learn more about how we're buying land and properties to build equity, get tax savings, and building dream high-income rental properties, you should see if you're a fit in our free community or set up a free call with me and my team about our one-on-one coaching program where we guarantee we'll find you a property. Link is just down below in the description. See you in the next video.